Chapter 1. To live a fulfilling life, we must learn to live like monks. Never before have so many people been so dissatisfied and obsessed with chasing unlimited happiness. We chase fame, money, glamour, sex, etc., but in the end, none of these things can satisfy us. We'll seek more and more, a cycle that leads to frustration, disillusion, dissatisfaction, unhappiness, and exhaustion. To avoid this, we need to think like monks. Why should we think like monks? The answer is not far-fetched. If we wanted to know how to dominate the basketball court, we might turn to Michael Jordan. If we wanted to innovate, we might investigate Elon Musk. If we're going to train our mind to find peace, calm, and purpose, however, it's only expected to look at monks. Monks are experts. They can withstand temptations, refrain from criticizing, deal with pain and anxiety, quiet the ego, and build lives that flow with purpose and meaning. Learning about true love and gratitude from the calmest, happiest, most purposeful people on earth is a massive advantage. While we appreciate the calm, relaxed, and serene attitude of monks, we mustn't think it's easy being a monk. They're hidden away in quiet settings where they don't have to deal with jobs. To think and live like monks, we must be focused, willing, and determined. Evil cannot drive out evil. Only love can do that. We must love unconditionally to live a fulfilled life. Chapter 2. Our identity is mostly shaped by what others think of us or what we think others think of us. We believe that our self-image is tied up in how we think others see us, but most of our self-improvement efforts are because we want to live up to those thoughts. When we believe someone we admire sees wealth as success, we chase wealth to impress that person. Humans naturally employ method acting as a way of shuffling between numerous personas. We have individual personas we play online, at work, with friends, and at home. These different personas have their benefits. They enable us to make the money that pays our bills, helps us function in places where we don't always feel comfortable, and they let us maintain relationships with people we don't really like but need to interact with. However, we sometimes switch between these personas so much that we lose sight of the real us. We sometimes bring our work role home with us, and we take the role we play with our friends into our romantic life without any conscious control or intention. Regardless of how successfully we play these roles, we feel dissatisfied, depressed, unworthy, and unhappy. The happiness mentality we grow up with makes us small and vulnerable. We try to live up to what we think others think of us, even at the expense of our values. When we then try to live our most authentic life, some of our relationships will be jeopardized. Losing close friends is a risk worth bearing, and finding a way to keep them in our lives is a challenge worth taking on. We are surrounded by images and voices telling us who we should be and what we should do. We are bound by cultural norms that are expected to determine who we are. Cultural norms exist for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with a society that offers models of what a fulfilling life might look like. However, if we accept these goals without reactions, we'll never understand why we are not living a fulfilling life. The voices of our parents, friends, educators, and media all crowd our young minds, beliefs, and values. We must learn to create our definition of success without conforming to society. Society's definition of a happy life is everybody's and nobody's. The only way to build a meaningful life is to remove the external noise and look within. Chapter 3. When we become self-critical, we remind ourselves that we also have positive qualities. During a class in the ashram, the author's monastery, Gauranga Das, a teacher, taught cancers of the mind, comparing, complaining, criticizing. In the class, he talked about negative thought habits, including gossip. He gave the monks the exercise of writing down 10 good things about someone they had criticized or gossiped about. This exercise made them realize the power of gossip and its problems. We tend to focus on people's mistakes without balancing them against their strengths. We also tend to focus on our mistakes without balancing them against our strengths. When we criticize others, we can't help but notice the bad in ourselves, but when we look for the good in others, we start to see the best in ourselves. Gossip has its own values. It helps society regulate acceptable behavior, and we often use it to see if others agree with our judgments about other people's behavior and values. However, there are kinder ways to negotiate questions that accompany gossip. In most cases, we use gossip to trample on others, making us feel superior to them and bolster our status in a group. Gossip causes negativity, which is bad for us. We are all faced with negativity every day. It is why we can't help but dish negativity out the same way we receive it. We tend to report the pains and worries of the day rather than talk about the small joys. We compare ourselves to other people, criticize people on social media, argue, deceive, etc. To get rid of negativity, we must always make positive remarks. We all have 3 core emotional needs, which are peace, love, and understanding. The negativity in our conversations, emotions, and actions often spring from a threat to one of these 3 needs: a fear that bad things are going to happen, loss of peace; a fear of not being loved, loss of love; or a fear of being disrespected, loss of understanding. From these fears, all sorts of other negative emotions come to play. These negative feelings are what springs out of us as complaints, comparisons, and criticisms. Bad things do happen. In our lives, we're all victims at some point, but if we adopt a victim mentality, we're more likely to take on a sense of entitlement and to behave selfishly. Chapter 4. We have so much power over the world, but fear and anxiety disconnect us from our true abilities. Growing up, we were taught that fear is negative. The truth is, we'll never live entirely without fear and anxiety. We'll never be able to build and fix our economic, social, and political world to eliminate conflict and uncertainty. However, fear isn't bad. It's merely a warning against our mind telling us that something might go wrong. Fear doesn't necessarily define us. What we do with the signal that it creates is what matters. We can use our fear of the effects of climate change to motivate us to develop solutions, or we can allow it to make us feel overwhelmed and hopeless and do nothing as a result. There are times when fear is a critical warning to help us survive the true danger, but most of the time we feel anxiety related to everyday concerns about our lives. We allow anxiety to hold us back by blocking us from our true feelings. The longer we hold on to fears, the more they grow until eventually they become toxic. Our brains are good at keeping us from entering uncomfortable spaces and making uncomfortable decisions, but by repeatedly asking a question rather than rephrasing or running away from it, we can corner our brain. If we stop viewing stress and fear as negative and instead see the potential benefits, we're on our way to changing our relationship with fear. The most important thing we need to realize about stress is that it doesn't do a good job of breaking down our problems. If we give in to fear too often, all of our stress hormones start to send us downhill, affecting our immune systems and our ability to heal. When we deal with anxiety and stress, we realize that we can deal with fear and hardship. This gives us new confidence that when bad things happen, we will find ways to handle them. With that increased objectivity, we are able to differentiate what's worth being afraid of and what's not. To live intentionally, we must dig to the deepest reasons behind what we want. This requires pausing to think about why we want something and who we are or who we need to be to get it. We must also find out whether being that person appeals to us. Most people are accustomed to looking for answers. In our quest to look for answers, we must not stop asking questions. Fear does not prevent death. It prevents life. Buddha. Chapter 5. Purpose and meaning, not success, lead to true contentment. We all have an image of an ideal life in our heads. We envisage our relationships, how we spend our time in work and leisure, and what we want to achieve. Even when we are not affected by external influences, certain objectives captivate us, and we design our lives around achieving them because we think they will make us happy. But one essential thing we fail to figure out is what drives these ambitions, whether they are likely to make us truly happy or not. Regardless of how disorganized we might be, we all have plans. We have an idea of what we have to accomplish in the day ahead, and we probably have a sense of what the year holds or what we hope we'll achieve in the future. These goals set our paths in life, which is why we must have well-planned goals. Hindu philosopher Bhaktivinoda Thakura describes 4 fundamental motivations that are essential to us. They are 1. Fear. This is described as being driven by sickness, poverty, fear of hell, or fear of death. 2. Desire. It's in seeking personal gratification through success, wealth, and pleasure. 3. Duty. It is motivated by gratitude, responsibility, and the desire to do the right thing. 4. Love. This is compelled by care for others and the urge to help them. When we allow fear to limit us, success doesn't satisfy us. When fear and desire aren't enough, then duty and love have more to offer. We all have different goals, but we all want the same things, a life full of joy and meaning. Monks don't seek out to find joy like the rest of us. They aren't looking for happiness or pleasure. Instead, they focus on the satisfaction that comes from living a meaningful life. Happiness can be elusive because it's hard to sustain a high level of joy. However, to derive meaning from our actions proves that we are achieving a purpose. These actions lead to a worthwhile outcome, and we're led to believe we're leaving a positive imprint. When we are happy, what we do matters, so we matter. Bad things happen, and life sometimes pulls us down, but it is always possible to find meaning. Understanding true happiness means we see the value of being motivated by duty and love. When we act out of duty and love, we know that we provide value to our lives and our society. When there is harmony between the mind, heart, and resolution, then nothing is impossible. Rig Veda. Chapter 6. Exploring our strengths and weaknesses in the universe leads each of us to our Dharma. Dharma is a Sanskrit term that can't be defined by a single English word, though to term it your calling comes close. According to the author, Dharma is an effort to connect passion and skills to our practical lives today. It is a combination of Varna and Seva. Varna is loosely defined as passion and skills, while Seva understands the world's needs and selfishly serves others. When your natural talents and passions, Varna, connect with what the universe needs, Seva, and become your purpose, you live in your Dharma. When you spend your time and energy living in your Dharma, you have the satisfaction of using your best abilities and doing something that matters to the world. Living in your Dharma is a proven route to fulfillment. If we're only excited when people say nice things about what we do, it's a sign that we're not passionate about the work itself. And if we indulge our interests and skills, but nobody responds to them, our passion is without purpose. If either piece is missing, we're not living our dharma. When we fantasize about what we want to do and who we want to be, we often don't investigate thoroughly enough to know if it suits our dharma. A lot of us think we want to be in finance because we know it's lucrative, or we want to be lawyers because they are respected and honored. We then move forward with no idea whether those professions suit us and if we will like the process, the environment, and the energy of the work. Growing up, society fed us with two lies. The first is, you'll never amount to anything. The second is, you can be anything you want to be. The truth is that you can't be anything you want, but you can be everything you are. Fall in love with your current self and find purpose in what you do by establishing routines. Routines might seem boring to you, but they are counterintuitive. Instead of being boring and repetitive, doing the same tasks at the same time in the same place makes room for creativity. The constant energy of location and memory of time helps us be present, engaging deeply in tasks instead of getting distracted or frustrated. We must build routines and train ourselves as monks do. Chapter 7. Once we quell our external distractions, we can address the voices inside our heads. By simply becoming aware of the different voices inside us, we can differentiate between the good and the bad decisions we make. When we begin to sort out the multiple voices in our heads, the conflict level will be relieving. Our minds should work in our own best interest, but we do not serve our interests most times. The complication is that we are weighing input from different sources. Our five senses may end up working simultaneously, each giving us conflicting ideas and suggestions on the same situation. In the Upanishads, an authorless Hindu region, the mind's working is compared to a chariot being controlled by 5 horses. In this analogy, the chariot is the body, the horses are the 5 senses, the reins are the mind, and the rider is the intellect. In the untrained state, the rider, the intellect, is asleep on the job, so the horses, the senses, have control of the reins, mind, and lead the body wherever they please. And horses, when left to their own initiatives, react to what's around them. They get distracted easily and are liable to run astray or deviate from the usual path. In the same way, our senses are activated at the moment by food, money, sex, power, influence, etc. If the horses are in control, the rider veers off the road in the direction of temporary pleasure and instant gratification. However, in the trained state, the rider, the intellect, is awake, aware, and attentive, not allowing the horses, the senses, to lead the way. The rider uses the reins of the mind to steer the chariot along the correct path carefully. It is believed that we are forever free when we renounce all selfish desires and break away from the ego cage of I, me, and mine. Humility opens us to the numerous possibilities that are otherwise hidden to us. When we are humble, we are open to learning because we understand how much we don't know. Humility shows that the biggest obstacle to learning is a know-it-all attitude. This false self-confidence is rooted in the ego. An unchecked ego harms us, and in our eagerness to present ourselves as the greatest and the smartest, we hide our true nature. Vanity and ego go hand in hand. Confidence and high self-esteem help us accept ourselves as we are, but we mustn't confuse the inflated ego with high self-esteem. The ego wants everyone to like us. High self-esteem says it's sufficient if they don't. The ego thinks it knows everything. Self-esteem thinks it can learn from anyone. The ego wants to prove itself. Self-esteem wants to express itself. Knowing the difference between the two is key to our happiness. Chapter 8. Once we have trained the mind to look inward, we are ready to look outward at how we interact with others in the world. When we start our day with gratitude, we'll be open to opportunities instead of obstacles. Looking inward draws us to creativity, not complaint. It helps us find new ways to grow rather than succumbing to negative thoughts that only shrink our options. Looking inward helps us understand the importance of gratitude and why it's so essential to appreciate ourselves. Gratitude helps us overcome the bitterness and pain that we all carry with us. It allows us to drop some of the burdens we've put on ourselves. Whenever we are grateful, it becomes almost impossible to be jealous or spiteful. When we feel grateful, our brains release dopamine, which makes us want to feel that way again, and we begin to make gratitude a habit. Gratitude is not only beneficial to the mind, but also for the physical body. The toxic emotions that gratitude blocks contribute to widespread growths that trigger loads of chronic illnesses, including heart disease. The conscious practice of gratitude is the way out of the poverty mentality that erodes our gratitude and with it, our integrity. Often we feel deeply grateful, but we have no idea how to pass it on. There are many ways and depths of giving thanks and giving back. The easiest way to show gratitude is to say thank you, but being basic doesn't cut it anymore. Make your thanks as specific as possible. Say things like, "Thanks for last night, it was awesome," or "Thanks for last night, the food was wonderful and I loved the funny sweet toast you made to your friend." It's sweeter when we express our gratitude in specific terms. The minute we are given well-detailed gratitude, the better we feel. We deflect gratitude when we expect every person to be a complete package, giving us everything we need. This is setting the bar incredulously high. We must learn to trust people if we want them to trust us in return. 4 types of trust will help us keep in mind what we can and can't expect from people. They are character, care, competence, and consistency. We cannot expect to find these 4 factors in even our closest friends. We must learn to trust even the people we do not know in order to boost diversity. To find diversity, we have to be open to new connections. It helps us meet new people and explore more possibilities. Did you know, according to UCLA neuroscientist Alex Korb, we can't focus on positive and negative feelings simultaneously. Chapter 9. Service is the essence of human consciousness. There are 3 stages of transformation that every monk must go through. First, they let go of the external and the ego. Second, they recognize their value and learn that they don't need to own anything to serve. And third, they continually seek a higher level of service. To the monks, the highest purpose is to live in service. Selflessness heals the self. We must always leave a place cleaner than we found it, people happier than we found them, and the world better than we met it. We are obligated to serve, and only in service can we be truly happy. Unless we know the reality of the world in which we live, how impermanent and unreal the source of our suffering and delusion is, we'll keep living a lie. When we make the purpose of life to be self-gratification, we get led down the road of dissatisfaction. Seeing life as a service leads to fulfillment. Service fulfills us on many levels, beginning with the simple belief that we are born to care for others. In Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela wrote, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, then they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Several studies show that when we pursue compassionate goals that aim to help others or make the world a better place, we're less likely to have symptoms of anxiety and depression than when we focus on improving or protecting our own reputation. The act of giving to others activates the pleasure center of our brain. This is why those who help others tend to live longer, be healthier, and have a better overall sense of well-being. Monks strongly believe that the pillar of service makes our lives better in many ways. Service connects us. When we serve, it's hard to be lonely. In many scenarios, we have to go out into the world to help other people. Service broadens us and increases gratitude. Service gives us a broad view of all that we have, and it increases compassion. When we serve, we see what the world needs and what we have to offer. Helping others tells us that we are making a difference in the world. Conclusion: there is no universal plan for peace and purpose. We achieve peace and tranquility by training our minds to focus on how to react, respond, and commit to the things we want in life, in our time frame, and at our own time. When life swerves, we must return to the focus of looking forward. If we wake up resolved to focus on putting our dharma to work and get given tasks that are not in line with our strengths, it is up to us to find a way to put our dharma to use. We are responsible for the type of life we live. When we fail with someone or at something, we shouldn't judge the process or judge ourselves. There's no perfect human being, which is why we should give ourselves time to recover and return to a flexible focus on what we want. The world isn't with us or against us. We create our own reality in every moment. Try this. Visualizing the inevitable will give you every lesson you need to live a fulfilling life. Fast forward yourself at age 70 or 90 and imagine yourself on your deathbed. Ask your future self the following personal questions. What do I wish I'd done? What experiences do I wish I'd had? What do I regret not giving more attention to? What skills do I wish I'd worked on? Use these questions to plan your life and create a roadmap for your future self.